Welcome to HEX, episode 5. 5 episodes, how did that happen? Feels like we just launched this. If you haven't seen some of those, go check them out on SideFX.com. It's already been an amazing journey meeting Houdini artists from around the world. So let's jump into this episode. First up, I talk with Dave Webster about his animated short, The Stag. One of last year's Houdini winners, Paul Esteves, has been creating short Houdini tutorials and posting them on Instagram and TikTok, and Robert McGee talks with him about that. Ubisoft's Erwin Heyms speaks with SideFX's Paul Ambrosiuson about procedural pipelines for game dev. Then I talk with Guido Ponzini about his CG short Life is a Rally, which used Houdini in conjunction with Unreal Engine. Ben Meir speaks with Gaetan Thibaut about his indie game, Blazing Sails. And then Debra Isaac speaks with David Torno about his recent LAHUG presentation. It's going to be another great one. Let's jump in. Hey, it's Chris from SideFX, and I'm here with Dave Webster. Hey, Dave.
Hi, how you doing? Nice to be here.
You too. So we definitely want to hear about your project, but let's start with a little bit about yourself. Tell us about Dave Webster.
So I'm from Scotland in the UK. I live in London now. I have done for many years. And I'm a motion director / CG generalist. And I work at Feature Deluxe. We're a motion design studio, but we do all kinds of work from like effects to abstract pieces. So that's my day job, and I also make a lot of personal work as a way of keeping fresh and progressing personally, and just to make sure I have a creative outlet so I can fully own and pour myself into it, and just a way of keeping up with new techniques and stuff that comes out of Houdini, or just new things that I want to get out of my head and put on the screen.
Cool. Well, speaking of personal projects, tell us about the Stag and how you came up with that concept and idea and a little bit about it.
So I guess like it's just almost like a love letter to when I was like walking in in forests in Scotland when I was a kid, and it's just the idea of taking like live action photography and integrating with CG and very like detailed effects and macro photography and just mushing it all together to make it one entity, and to also make it really evocative as well, so that you can actually you can feel yourself in the forest, and it's a really sort of mood piece, and you feel like you're in a living, breathing forest, because they're quite magical, these forests. You can feel yourself in them, and I want that to be reflected in every aspect of the film. So that's basically why I did it.
Right on. Well, it's such a beautiful piece. Can't wait to hear more about it. So let's jump in.
Hi, so I'm going to do a very quick run through of how I did this project. I'll just give a really basic overview of each shot as it plays. I'll concentrate on the 3D Houdini side of things, because the 2D nuke side and the photography, that's a whole other thing. But as a general guide, every shot has a real backplate, which I filmed in a couple of forests in Scotland and Northern England. Some are reconstructed in nuke or layered up in cards, but it all uses real footage as a backplate and occasionally as a foreground as well. I wanted it to be really hard to pick out what's real and what's CG, so it all kind of mushes together. The first 3 shots start fairly basically. Simply had my walking stag model act as a collider in a foggy pyrosim. And there's some flies which are throughout every shot, which are essentially just pop sims with some pop attract and pop flock. This shot has a bit of everything. We've got some RBD sims attracting little blocks of wood and moss towards a central point, and that's where they get sort of sucked up into this vortex. At the same time, there's a Vellum sim on the ground. It's kind of scrunching and tearing up that layer of moss. Also some secondary pyro and pops in there too. This is a continuation of the previous shot. You can see the ground there getting pulled up in that Vellum sim, and then this merges into the main construction of the legs, which is a lot of splinters, which are mainly curves with a few small shards of geo in there, spinning around the central leg geometry, and the shards get aligned into position using the cross product between up and the normals of the legs, which I was going to move to a pop sim, but actually I like the regularity of the circular motion around it. So the shards settle into position. There's this intermediate stage where it melts onto the completed legs model, and all is controlled by one mask which moves up the length of the leg, which controls the circular motion and how they settle into the completed model. Similar things happening here, but the alignment of the splinters as they settle happens in more of a rippled wave-like shape, and they distort the UVs of the underlying model so it settles into position. And there's a bunch of other things going on here. We've got the occasional gold splinter to catch the light, some gold trails running up the body, and some moss, which is essentially just fur, and then as usual pop sim of flies going on. This is a reverse shot into the light, and this colourful patch is a refractive window which shows the internal volume inside the model, and a structure growing within, which is just a VDB of connected points which grows throughout the shot. But the refraction map is some macro footage of paint under glycerine, so it has this lovely oozy quality which can reveal the internal of the model. This shot's mostly real, so we don't need to talk about that. This shot is the back flank of the completed stag. These long grassy things are vellum hairs. They just grow by animating the rest length and their stiffness. Got that regular wavy motion by animating a sawtooth wave up and down the length of the model. This controls the wind speed. I found if it didn't do that, the motion was way too chaotic and all bunched up and got very clumpy. The next three shots, they're all connected. These golden trails are trails of droplets which travel along their path until they meet the final position where they become attached to these lichen structures, which are vellum cloth, and they're curling around. Then when they get there, a pop fluid separates all the drips, and they change shader to this refractive amber, and then they take the movement of the vellum sims. And then underneath, there are a few connected networks of growth structures and some wiry structures that just bend and scale as they grow. Same with this shot mostly. The additions are a CG eyeball with macro footage of a crystal as a shader, and then this gloopy stream in the top left of the eye, which is a refractive plane with some flowing paint controlling its displacement. This shot's a really high-res version of the top of the head, and it uses, again, footage of paint being dispersed by alcohol as a mask for refraction and displacement, but also to distort the diffuse woody texture underneath, so it really feels like it's pushing it aside from within. And then this last shot, this is the completed stag with a bunch of secondary effects, pyro and pyro-advected pops. In general, the way it works is it had the completed model of the stag at low level detail, which is what we see here really. And then it had highly detailed sections of it that it could isolate for the close-ups. The lighting was similar throughout. I filmed some leaf shadows on a wall, which I used as footage for a light texture, so I made these lovely dynamic gobos, and combined that with some blockers to get some accurate shadows depending on the shots. Anyway, that's a kind of whirlwind tour around the project. Thanks for listening.
Hey, Paul. How's it going?
Yeah, doing super well, Rob. How about yourself?
Good, thanks.
Okay.
Really excited about the tutorial series that you put out yesterday, the Vellum Nodes. Tell us a little bit about those tutorials.
Yeah, so I'm super excited that they have been released. It was a lot of fun to make. We had a chat, me and some guys at SideFX, and we decided to take some of the videos that I'd done shorter versions of and create slightly longer form versions with a little bit more in-depth discussion about how to create some of the files that I made, as well as a little bit more discussion around exactly what each node does and the different settings on each node.
Yeah, you've been posting a lot of videos on social media, TikTok, Instagram, and so on. They're fun to see.
Yeah, thanks. They've been fun to make, and it's been a bit of a journey. I had no intention of it kind of spiraling the way that it has and continuing as long as it has. I just started making them for fun, as I wanted to kind of up my social media presence in the middle of lockdown, try and like connect more with people and get more active on social media. And a lot of people really enjoyed them, and myself, I just enjoyed making them and learning new nodes and digging into the help files as what different nodes do. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun creating them and digging into the different nodes.
I think one of the things that's nice about the tutorials you put out yesterday is that anyone who saw your social media videos lots of people can just dive in and do that stuff right away. They already have the base knowledge, but it's really nice that you're helping to build a base of knowledge for anyone else, anyone getting started, anyone who maybe didn't know what you were talking about when they saw those videos the first time.
Yeah, and I think, I'm still quite new to Houdini. I've only been using it just under 3 years, so I kind of feel like that's still fairly new in comparison to a lot of people. And I know when I first started out, there were a lot of questions I had of like, okay, I see things, but how do you just get the basics set up? And so my hope was to really bring everything down to like the base level of, okay, how do we get this from scratch? Like, just get the basics going, and then we can explore some different settings and to get it a little bit more advanced. But in 5 minutes, how can we, use the node straight away rather than, a 30-minute tutorial on, all these other things that I just want to use this node now. So let's try that. So that was my approach to it.
Well, you got to do a tutorial on balloons. I think everybody has fun making the balloons. So.
Yeah, the Vellum balloon is definitely my favorite. It just makes everything look really good.
Cool. Well, thanks a lot, Paul, and we look forward to your next series, whatever that's going to be.
Thank you, Rob. I'm super excited to make it when we figure out what that is.
Sounds good.
Great. Thank you so much.
Have fun.
All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Paul Boysen. I'm a technical artist and labs lead at SideFX. I focus on the real-time side of things. And today we're talking about procedural pipelines. And to do that, we've invited Erwin. Welcome.
Hi. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks. So procedural pipelines. Let's start off quick and easy. What is a procedural pipeline?
A procedural pipeline is basically a process in your development where you rely on procedural systems to drive the development of your game. Instead of doing everything by hand, you run it through a tool set, or say a set of tools that are running on a build farm, for example, in order to speed up and automate the way how you develop your games. So I'd say when I was working on Ghost Recon Wildlands or on Breakpoint, we heavily use procedural systems for generating, for example, the roads, the villages, the vegetation in the world, and to composite everything together. And the benefit of all of this was that I think we generated about 80% of the world procedurally, especially the natural looking world, and 20% of that was afterwards done by hand or touched up with smaller procedural tools. And this allowed us to work in a much smaller team, maybe about 300 people at most. And with this, we were still able to make a massive, highly detailed open world. So I think that's the main benefit of using a procedural pipeline. It's just you're able to focus more on detail if you let the procedural elements take care of all the tedium.
That sounds nice. Yeah. So it sounds like you have lots of procedural assets that you're working with. And what sort of different types of assets are you dealing with then?
I like to categorize procedural assets in a couple of different types, right? You have the ones that your end user doesn't really see, but maybe we as the technical artists use. And then you have the tools that you're going to hand off to your team or to other people. And maybe you put them on the render farm. So they just activate it and then it cooks out the result. So one example would be, say, a canned asset. Like the simplest form is an asset you just drop down, configure, and then it just runs. Say, for example, something that would build an elevator or say, spawn vegetation or catwalks, right? And then following that, you have what I mentioned is the utility assets. These are like the labs nodes. So the nodes that come with Houdini Labs. And they need to be very stable because you're going to be using them yourself. You're going to hand them off to other technical artists in your team. And then the way how they're used is more to help facilitate features that Houdini doesn't have by default, such as importing and exporting data to your game engines or maybe processing your geometry in a certain way. Then you have the processors, which are bigger tools, which usually take a while to cook. So we offload those to the render farm, and we just have these smaller input tools that we can hand off to our artists, and they can then use those to send information to the bigger processor, which then processes that data and gives back the result. And finally, I would say the most powerful and art-directable ones are the editors. These are my favorite. They are basically a combination of all of the ones before, where you have an input, that acts like a painting brush or a handle. And the way how these operate is, instead of directly influencing the output, they actually help you manipulate what you're doing and send it to a cache, and you're constantly updating that cache. And the cache is what drives the final output, which was sent to, say, for example, a processor on the render farm. So one example would be, say you have a road, you can use your editor handles to select a part of that road, cut it out, redraw that road, and then save it out to the cache, and then send it to the processor to give you your final roads. And this will give you a very user-friendly and often intuitive workflow if set up right.
That sounds nice. So, you've built all these different tools and workflows. You give them to your users that work at a studio or they work outside of a studio. How do you manage the feedback that they give on your tools?
Well, obviously, if something's broken, we need to fix it, right? Optimally, I think we try to design tools together with the users. So we try to keep them in the loop as we build the tools. But it's also important that we, or at least me in this case as the technical artist, knows the problem that I'm trying to build. It's no use if I build a tool that the user doesn't want to use. And if they have a problem or a bug, then I need to understand why they think it's a problem or a bug. And if sometimes they like the tools and then say they just want new features, right? So then we need to go it over with, say, the leads and technical artists and make sure that they don't actually request something that maybe they don't actually need because they don't understand the problem. So we need to communicate a lot. And I think that's the most important part, just communication and keeping each other in the loop.
Yeah, no, I can talk about that as well from experience, that communication with your customers or your users is very important, because it saves both you as a developer a lot of time, but also saves the user a lot of time, like you said. So yeah, good to know about that. Do you have any other sort of tips or advice that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Well, I think that showing the benefits of your procedural tools to the rest of your team is key. So when you're starting out with your, say, your pipeline, you want to have some examples or some prototypes that you can lay out for them so they can see the benefits of all of it. And this will tend to bring people on board. As for advice and other advice, well, I actually have something I want to talk about, is that I am also a Houdini teacher. This is something that I've been doing over the past year. I started a few years ago at Ubisoft, where I made a 35-hour masterclass for them. And this was actually pretty well received across the entire company. And since then, I've been working on a new masterclass that I want to publicly release, right? So I kind of wanted to quickly plug that here. So over the past year, I've been working hard on this new public multi-part Houdini masterclass. This is the Procedural Asset Production Masterclass, and it will be a comprehensive, multi-stage course on professional digital asset development for game development pipelines. And I'm doing this using the Unreal Engine, so I'm going to use the Houdini Engine plugin as well. So I will start this one for simple beginner level entry, so people that haven't used Houdini yet. And we'll start with these canned assets I talked about, such as an elevator builder, and a tool that creates morphing stairwells, so we can have a stairwell that has different shapes. But eventually, this masterclass will teach how to integrate these and other assets into a much larger procedural pipeline, building a fully playable, art-directable high-rise building, complete with exterior and interior decoration, wall tiles, and we'll add details through instancing and geometry generation as well. If you want to know more about the masterclass, you can check out the Q&A section on my Patreon page at patreon.com/Erwin Heyms. And there's a couple of benefits if you were to become a patron, because backers of my Patreon will receive daily and weekly progress updates on the development of the masterclass. They will accumulate a discount for the final course when it's released. And they also gain access to my Discord channel, where they can ask me questions about the development. They can talk to me if you want, or ask for advice on your own projects. And also, I also do mentoring sessions. So if you have your own project and you want me to help you out with that, then I offer that as well. You can check out my Patreon page for that. So definitely go check it out. And I have one last thing I want to mention, and that's some good news here, because thanks to my patrons, thank you for your support, people, because thanks to you and SideFX, I'm now going to release the intro module of my course for free for everyone. And you can look forward to seeing this be released early next month in conjunction with Houdini Hive.
Great, thanks for sharing that with us. It sounds like a very useful resource for people wanting to know more about procedural pipelines. So thank you.
That's the goal. No problem.
All right, with me today we've got Guido Ponzini. Hello.
Hello.
So tell us a little bit about yourself to start.
My name is Guido Ponzini. I am Italian, and I started to work in 3D, and I am basically VFX technical artist, and I'm mostly working real time for video games. And I started as musician. I have been like 15 years a musician. And then I started to make like training for and visualization, product visualization for industry. So I switched to 3D before with Unity for exhibition. And then I came up to Unreal. And in this moment, when then I turned to be more technical art for video game. I did for company like technical art. I started to use Houdini, mostly because it was really open. So also for industry, I used it for a lot of different tasks, like, for example, optimizing model, exchanging formats, making procedural UVs for preparing the models. And from this point up to all my career until now, it's probably the main software that I use together with the real-time engine.
Right on. So life is a rally. Where did you come up with that idea? And tell us about
yeah, this was like a personal project. So my idea was, okay, let's try to do something for automotive, because in the past many companies asked me, okay, but can we see some demo for automotive and so on? So basically I said, let's try to do something for automotive. I had like really small time because it was like a personal project. So basically it was outside from working hour. Basically I worked mostly on weekend and in the evening, because my girlfriend works in the evening. I have like the night turn. So basically I go at 11 to bring her, and until 11 I worked on Life is a Rally. And I had like one of my ex-student, because I teach Houdini at NABA in Milano University. And basically we made like a cooperation together. And the idea was, okay, let's try to do something that is automotive, in the automotive field, but have all the stuff that is difficult to see in other automotive example. For example, we have like all physical rig about the car. We have environmental effects. And we tried to have like a storytelling that is based on our pandemic situation. So basically Life is a Rally is like very simple storytelling about how all the people just go through the life and no matter what happens, you need to go. And that's also the important thing of life. And I think a rally car is a good metaphor for this kind of thing.
I'm a huge motorsport fan. So you take motorsport, rally, Houdini, and real time, put it all together. It caught my eye for sure.
I'm really happy of it.
Yeah. So take us through the project. How did you get started? Why did you choose sort of Houdini and Unreal together? And
yeah, the first idea, I was a little bit worried about doing in real time, because there are a lot of things that were quite hard to achieve. But in the end, I started first to organize the work in a little bit studio fashion, because I tried many times in the past to do a personal project, but every time you basically lose yourself because you have really straight time and so on. So we scheduled, I say, okay, we have 2 months to finish it, no matter how it comes out. And I have weekends, my students had more time. So I created like a Trello board with the 5 quality level as in studio, as you work in studio. And so basically in the night, I wrote all the Trello tasks for him, and in this way we coordinated all the work. I started personally to make the physical rig of the car. Was the first thing that we did, and was the first thing that we bring in Unreal, because the first idea was to work with Alembic, but soon it was not sustainable because it was too big, the Alembic. So basically, what I love from Houdini is that you can really go in depth in everything that happens. So basically, we extract. I extracted the matrices from all the components of the simulation, and I created a skinned FBX. So basically, all the animation was like 2 megabytes or something like that, and we moved the model with the skinned mesh FBX. The first thing I created the car rig, and the first thing that I figured out was, okay, my first idea was we move the car over a terrain, and then we cut the terrain. But the result was not exactly, because the car is in a laboratory and go over a tapirulan. So basically, I decided to make a real tapirulan. So basically in Houdini, I have the tapirulan that have his own strength, and the car just go on it. So I have like the rig in which I can tune the speed of the car. And I then made a second pass for the wheel to polish maybe some jittery inside the RBD animation. And from here, I passed all the rig with animation in FBX to Angelo in order to implement it inside Unreal. This was basically for the car. Then we had like the first Vellum simulation, because the car is inside the laboratory but is covered by a huge cloth. This is the only thing that is Alembic. Then after that, we basically tuned up the short movie on the physical animation. So we placed all the stuff, mixing some procedural thing and some Quixel asset inside Unreal. And from here, I proceeded making all the VFX. The VFX are done, all the flips with Houdini, and the dynamic of the VFX is done with the Niagara inside Unreal. Basically from here, I used also all the new tools from labs that I love, and are the skinned mesh converter. For example, there is inside the snowstorm, there is a lamp that goes up and down, and is a Vellum simulation that is bring the inside Unreal with the skinned mesh converter. Also, there are some stuff that are bring with the new DEM converter. There are other stuff bring with the vertex texture animation node from labs. And in the end, there is all the part of the laboratory that is made procedurally. And I think Houdini was the most important thing for this project, because we had really we didn't have enough time to finish proper everything. So in Houdini, for example, making cables is extremely fast because you just use a few line of VEX, and then you use Vellum, and basically all the cables are ready to go. Then you procedurally create UV, and in Substance Paint, there was some asset that I think took like 10 minutes to finish and to send in the end for the last part of the video. So yeah, basically this is the overview of the workflow.
Very cool. And what would you say is the most interesting thing that you learned having gone through that whole process?
I think that there is so many ways to bring stuff outside Unreal, inside Unreal, and I've never seen any software that gives you so much possibility to bring stuff inside. Because we made, I don't know, for example, smoke, you can easily make like a 6D texture. You can make normal at the same time. You can pack the different stuff. Also, I love from texture sheet node that you have like the possibility to mix the normal from volumes together with the normal calculated by shaders. And I mean, what also, for example, the wheel was a real problem because we had a lot of issue bringing them and just extracting the matrices and assigning the transform to an empty object worked perfectly. So this helped me a lot to figure out how to exchange stuff inside Unreal from Houdini.
Very cool. Well, terrific work on the project. It must be very rewarding to have that done now and out in the public, and now you can move on to the next personal project.
Yeah, yeah. Now I will take a little bit of pause because we're 2 months really, really intense. But yeah, I'm happy of the result because. Basically, we started from an Octane. I made like a block out with the car in Octane, and then I said, okay, we need to reach at least around this quality, and I think we managed to get quite good quality for a real-time short movie.
For sure, and considering the size of your team, which is
to be. I mean, we were 2 people plus. A musician that makes also the voice acting. So basically, like 2 technical people and 1 musician.
Yeah, awesome, man. Well, really, really, really good work, and thanks for taking us through that.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we'll talk to you soon, Guido.
Bye bye.
Hey everyone, it's Ben from SideFX, and today I'm talking to Gaetan Thibaut of Get Up Games. How you doing today, Gaetan?
Yeah, pretty good. How are you, Ben?
Doing well. Thanks for doing this interview with us. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself and Get Up Games?
Yeah, sure. I'm Gaetan. I'm the business manager / technical artist for Get Up Games. So after 2017, after I finished game development university here in Belgium, in Kortrijk, I did my internship and started working at Sumo Digital, where I started working on Sackboy, a big adventure for the PlayStation 5. I worked there for about like a bigger part of like a year. And after that, I actually decided to come back to Belgium and start a game development company, Get Up Games, together with my 2 cousins. Later on, my brother actually joined the company as well. It's kind of a real family company, actually. And so we started working on Blazing Sails. My 2 cousins were already working on Blazing Sails, prototyping it a little bit, but we actually started full production when I joined. We actually released in early access last summer. And since then, we've actually sold over 100,000 copies. And we're actually planning to release and go into full release on Steam later this year. Yeah.
That's great. And so you're talking about your game Blazing Sails. Tell us more about the game. Like, what kind of game is it?
So it's a pirate battle royale game where you and 3 other people man your own ship. And you actually have to defend your ship against the other pirates and be the last crew / pirate standing. It's kind of a twist on the battle royale genre, where your life kind of depends on the ship. So if you die, you will just respawn on the ship. But if your ship dies, you actually lose that game. It's also important to do the classical battle royale things like loot, actually sail and survive. And of course, customize your ship and your character.
And of course, the reason we're here today is because you're using Houdini to make the game. So can you tell us a bit about how you're using Houdini?
Yeah, so in the 3 years of development, we've actually only had like 3 to 4 actual full-time developers on the game. So we had a really limited time, and we had to really be smart about how and where we invested our time. And I actually learned about Houdini back when I was working at Sumo Digital. The guys next to me were actually using Houdini. I kind of followed what they were doing and learned about it a little bit then. And I was really amazed with all the stuff you could actually do with it. And I actually decided when we were in pre-production for Blazing Sails to actually incorporate it and make learning Houdini a part of the pre-production for Blazing Sails. Now that's actually turned out really great for us. It turned out to be a really time-saving and powerful tool, and we actually use it for all sorts of things to actually generate the cliffs, generate glaciers, like based on blockouts that we made in the level. We use it to generate the simulations of the wind on the sails and on the flags. I actually use it as well for part of our ocean. Like the small detail displacements is actually based on the ocean, the Houdini ocean, that I rendered out to some textures and brought that into Unreal. And also for a part of our VFX, where I actually made some smoke simulations and explosions in Houdini, and converted that to a mesh, and then imported that with the vertex animation into Unreal as well.
That is quite a lot of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And so, you mentioned you're building the game inside Unreal Engine. Can you tell us a bit about using Houdini and Unreal together?
Yeah, sure. Houdini is an amazing, great tool for Unreal developers, especially with the SideFX Labs tools. Personally, I'm a really big fan of the vertex animation toolsets, where you can actually import really detailed vertex animations into Unreal and still make it very, very cost effective. Vellum also helped a great deal in this, just to make it the setup and time to make some simple wind animations or like sails going up and down really easy and iterative. We also used the Houdini engine inside of Unreal, the actual plugin, to generate our large cliffs and glaciers. That way we could just put some blocks in the level, mash them together, get the shape we really like, and still make it interactable with all of our gameplay. And just click generate, and out pops a generated fully game ready asset. That fast iteration is really great for our game. Yeah.
Well, that's all great info, and thanks for talking to us today. Where could people go to play Blazing Sails, and when will it be out?
So right now, Blazing Sails is out on early access on Steam, and will be releasing in full release later this year.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Gaetan, and we wish you the best of luck with the game development.
All right. Thank you very much, Ben.
Hi, I'm Debra Isaac. I'm a Houdini educator at Drexel University, founder of Houdini School, and also the co-organizer of the Los Angeles Houdini User Group, also known as LAHUG. Our meetup coming up Wednesday, June 23rd, is featuring David Torno. He's a visual effects artist and will be showcasing 2 of his Mardini entries. Hi, David.
Hi, Debra.
So David, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I'm a self-taught visual effects artist and educator. I have worked on movies, music videos, and commercials. I have a large collection of video tutorial training content over at my website, fenderfx.com.
So how is Mardini for you? These competitions are so challenging with the time constraints you have and also the time it takes to make really good work.
Challenging would be an understatement. With a daily challenge like this, trying to find the time to design, come up with the idea, build, and actually render everything out in a short time period is really tricky. But the challenge of that I found very interesting, and it really pushed my skill limits, and I had a lot of fun with it.
That's great. And how did you get the idea for your piece, Fantasy? There is a mysterious and ethereal quality to it.
Fantasy was a fun one. Like with many artists, we go to Pinterest and try to find as many references as we can. In the process, I found a bunch of kind of foggy swamps and forests, and I really loved the way the trees and vines kind of worked in a lot of those images. It was a simple enough geometry that I felt I could actually approach and build in Houdini without any too much complication, but that's what made it possible.
It's really beautiful, and I look forward to seeing your presentation in our meetup. And I know you're going to give us a partial breakdown of how you made it and really get into the networks and show us a lot of things. What about the Valley? There's a real dreamy quality to it. Can you talk about that one?
Valley was an interesting one. That one actually had zero inspiration behind it. I like to dive into Houdini sometimes and play in a sandbox, as it were. I started off with some simple kind of object and kind of went from there, just to kind of see where things would flow and kind of discovered things along the way. That dream look actually is primarily from the render side of it. In Redshift, I had found a trick completely by accident, where you just take the optics denoise and you render everything at very low res, and it smeared it all around to kind of look like watercolor and gouache.
That's great. So thanks, David, and I look forward to the meetup this coming Wednesday, June 23rd, and I hope you all join us too.
Thank you for having me.